Hey guys, I want to be really clear up front. This video is not about balance. Now don't get me wrong, Bethesda has to balance the game. They always have. That's not what this is. This is about what happens when real money meets quiet changes and how that affects trust. Let me explain. On Friday, February 6, 2026, Bethesda released a PTS update with no patch notes and just cite that it contains general bug fixes as they close in on finalizing the update. Normally I'd shrug that off. It's the PTS and things change. Literally, that's what it's for. But inside the update were changes that directly touch something people paid for, and not years later, days later. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I don't think this is malicious. I don't think this is some grand scheme. I just think that when money is involved, how changes are communicated matters just as much as the changes themselves. If this all sounds familiar, it should. I talked about it in a previous video, and at the time, it felt like something to keep an eye on. Nothing definitive, just something worth watching. Then something else happened that raised an eyebrow. Bethesda moved the patch day. That doesn't happen often, and when it does, there's usually a reason. Sometimes it's stability, sometimes it's logistics, and sometimes it's just the timing of the patch. But when a patch is moved to an earlier date, especially one tied to the PTS, it compresses the window for testing and for discussion. And that kind of matters because there was only a narrow window where players could do something, and some of them absolutely did. And we'll come back to that. Just keep that in the back of your mind for a second. So now we have three things happening at once: a paid item, a quiet PTS update, and a patch date that suddenly moved up. Let's talk about what actually changed. The Ad Victorium 4-star Super Sledge, the one that's purchasable from the Mojave bundle, now costs 20 legendary modules to craft. It used to cost 2. That's not a tweak, that's a fundamental shift in how expensive this weapon is to interact with. Now this change may not ship next patch. It could be adjusted. It could be delayed. That's always a possibility on the PTS. So I'm not saying this is happening Monday. I'm saying this is happening right now on the test server. And one other tidbit of information about the PTS: even though this change is live on the PTS right now, players cannot actively craft the Ad Victorium on the PTS right now. The cut of data that's on the PTS right now was created prior to the bundle coming out and being sold. So when the legendary modules jump tenfold, players don't wait around to see how it plays out, they react. Because when systems change, value changes with them, especially when the value was tied to something people paid real money for. And that reaction is where this is going to get interesting, because there are two different things happening at the same time on two different servers. The module cost change, that's on the PTS. The Ad Victorium, that's on live servers. And what players are doing with it right now, that's for keeps. On the live servers, players who own the Mojave bundle can craft the Ad Victorium, deconstruct it, giving them a chance to learn the charge mod. They can also construct it, take the Ad Victorium skin off of it, hand the weapon over to another player, and let them deconstruct it too. None of this is new. None of this is hidden. This is just how the system works today. Now, what is new is the information that's sitting on the PTS that the same weapon is slated to jump from 2 legendary modules to 20. And that's not a deal breaker unless you're wanting to learn the mod charged. That one change dramatically alters how accessible this mod becomes. And I saw the reaction to that in real time when I shared this information on my Discord server last night. There wasn't any panic, there wasn't any outrage, just some of the players quietly coordinating, reaching out to some of their other friends who already own the bundle, quietly working together so they wouldn't be priced out of learning the mod later down the road. And they weren't reacting to what has changed, they're reacting to what might change without warning. If this goes live Monday, players effectively have about 1 day left where the cost structure they're acting under still exists. Now, this still may not ship. It could be adjusted. That's the PTS. When players start making permanent decisions on live servers because of an untested change on the PTS, that's when communication really matters. And that's going to bring us to the part that bothers me the most, which is items like this are purchased with real world money and then quietly adjusted behind the scenes. Because this isn't new, we've seen this pattern before. And let's be honest, 20 legendary modules is really not that big of a deal. But right now, everybody's talking about the AMR after the last episode of Season 2. And a lot of people want to see it in the game, and honestly, I get that. I do too. And some folks are even speculating it could end up in a bundle just like the Ad Victorium. And if it does, Bethesda already knows what happens next. They know those weapons come in hot, and they know the mods on them need a higher stamp. And they know as soon as they introduce it, balance becomes a moving target. And to be clear, that's not wrong. It's their game. They should tune it. They should make changes until it fits where they want the game to be. But when something is sold for real money, the relationship changes even if the rules technically don't. don't. Because at that point, players aren't just testing a build, they're buying into expectation. And history tells us that if something doesn't fit, Bethesda will adjust it again and again until it's satisfactory to them. And this might be a newsflash, but that's how live service games work. So this isn't me saying don't balance the game, and it's not me saying don't sell bundles, even though I'm pretty much against it if they go beyond containing items for cosmetics. But it is me saying that when these two items collide, money and balance, silence is the one thing that makes people super uneasy. So let me be clear about something. This isn't a Bethesda hit piece. I don't think they're doing anything shady here. I don't think this is malicious. I don't think they owe us some legal obligation to explain every internal change. But when real world money enters the picture, the relationships change whether we intend it to or not. Because there's a lot that can change quietly behind the scenes. Damage and durability, mod interactions, the price of things. Sometimes when they make modifications, they use a big lever. Other times they just turn the dial just so much. And I understand why they do it. Live games need tuning. Balance is never finished. The problem isn't that changes happen, it's that players only find out after they've already reacted. That's why the no patch notes thing matters here, especially on the PTS. Because if there's any group of players out there that can handle the conversations of nuance and testing and hey, this might change stuff, are the people that play on the PTS. A paragraph, a sentence, even a heads up would have completely changed how things landed here. Because transparency doesn't stop criticism, it manages it. It turns panic into patience and it turns speculation into understanding. And look, this change might not even ship. It could be adjusted, it could be walked back. But the reaction tells us something important. Players are acting because they don't want to be surprised. So this isn't about power, it's not about pay to win, it's not even about this one weapon. It's about, wait for it, trust, and how quickly it can be strained when silence fills the gaps. And that's all I wanted to put out there. No pitchforks, no outrage, just calling a spade a spade. So I want to end this the right way. This isn't about one weapon, it's not about one patch, and it's definitely not about trying to stir up anything. Bethesda has every right to balance the game. They always have, they always will. But when real money enters the picture, communication matters more, not because players are fragile, but because trust is. Most players aren't asking for guarantees, they're just asking not to be surprised, especially when the place designed for testing and feedback stays quiet. This change might ship, it might not, and either way, the game will go on. I just think a little transparency goes a long ways in keeping people invested. Not just in the game, but in the relationship. If the video was any help to you, please give it a thumbs up. And if these are the kind of conversations that you like to have, this is what I'm trying to build here, so please hit the subscribe button too. And that's it for me. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'm the Naked Vault Dweller. Love you, bye. Oh, how nice it is to be finally out in the great outdoors where I could see nature and what? Wait a tick? What is that? This looks to be like some kind of pre-war microwave or something. What does this button do? Uh-oh.